I'm just showing some slides, and after some slides I want to jump directly into our tool and show you something. Last night I think we played the same game, but we use other toys. Our toys called BPMN, and our tool itself called Innovator, and our customer forced us to provide a tool which helps from design time, create models or draw pictures down to the execution. So I want to show you a small way through the path from the first sketch, from the first idea, comes from the customer or comes from the business department to an execution of a process, using different kind of modeling styles, different kind of notations. Yeah? And not only BPMN. BPMN is only one part of our modeling style. So I add some another modelings, some another notations, some other models together, and build up a completely mostly executable part of the model, executable model. But be careful, we are not an execution engine itself. For the real execution, we use partner products. We use products from great customer like IBM or Oracle or TIBCO or any other kind of execution engine. So we are the tool for the design time to design an executable business process model and use any kind of business engine or business process engine to become the pictures live. So a short introduction of MID. MID is located and founded in Nuremberg as a spin-off of the University of Erlangen in Nuremberg in the first of 1981. Since this time we we found some customers, huge amount of customers. Nearly about 28 years ago we started developing tool, and the tool name is since this time tool named Innovator. We are located in Nuremberg, Cologne, Stuttgart and Munich, and since last year also in Zurich with an own company. Approximately 70 consultants help our customers to start up with Innovator, to build up models, to build up good models, to make quality assurance or any other kind of actions using our tool or other modeling tools to build up good models. Okay, we are very happy about some votes in the last years, and some partners helps us to provide a full range of modeling capabilities for building up business process models. Okay, some challenges addressed by our products and our consultancies, and the major challenge is to keep the agile or the agility of a company up. Normally, if you start with a new company and startup company, you are very agile. You know, if few amount of employees, you can reach a special kind of business usage very fast. You're very quick. Yeah? You have not a huge amount of employees to change or to include into a change process. So you're very fast, and during the time your agility go down because a lack of transparency, a lack of documentation, and some insufficient ability of moving to new targets, moving to new aims. So we try to keep the agility up or increase agility during the process. And how do we do? We collect all information together for the innovation challenge, and the innovation challenge needs to collect information about the processes which have to change, about the data, which store during processes, and the systems, mostly the IT systems, which handles the processes or running the processes and store and manage the data. That's all three parts together must be keep in mind or must be captured during the innovation challenge. We built up a tool which handles all these aspects based on a repository and centralized model server, which keep all informations together, which coming from different roles in the process. And today I show you the role business analysis, the innovator for business analysis, and in addition, some enterprise architects or software architects or database architects also can add some information for the data, for the processes, for the IT system, for the landscapes, for any other kind of information. And all together works based on the repository, and the information is stored in our so-called innovator model server. And I'm just preparing a short example to show the way from the first sketch, from the first idea, back to the, or down to the execution in the BPMN engine. So I just switch over to our prepared example. And our prepared example, it's just like the previous one, and travel, to plan a travel. And so we start with building up the context, and building up the context mean for us to use use case diagrams. Yesterday I heard in one of the presentation, it looks like a use case diagram if you use S-BPM. Though we directly use use case diagram, not likely, or anything, we directly use use case diagram to build up the context. And in this example, I prepare a short example for a customer which are able to buy. Oh, can you give me my smartphone? Sorry. For the example. Normally, if I booked a ticket, I use the smartphone app. I think you know it. From the DB, Deutsche Bahn, to use the app to request or to find out the connection between two railway stations, to find the intersections or the connections, to find out the duration and so on. And buy an online ticket by the smartphone is a short example. So together with this context, I build up the context using a UML diagram. I also able to catch a small, yesterday we called it user story, or the use storyboard, and small sketch which show the interaction between different kind of participants, different kind of elements. So on the left side you see the customer, on the right side the DB online ticket service, and some messages or some information objects between this. And at the end of the short process, the goal is a stored online ticket like this you see in a small picture. So that could be a typical starting point received from the customer in a word-based document or in a Fachkonzept, so-called Fachkonzept, I don't know the right word for this. So start with a specification or requirement specification. And that's my first example. Start with the app. The app typically starts with a screen which forces us to enter the departure station, the arrival station, the date and time of departure, and so on. And after this, I receive some possible connections. I select one, I get some details, I receive some details about the track or the platform, the duration, the amount of minutes between, or the waiting time between the departing or arrival and departing, and so on and so on. And after that, I produce the ticket and so on. Well, that's a small sketch. Could be in any kind of notation. It's not a really notation. It's only a sketch. That's a starting point. And From this, we want to create a first interaction for this by using the use case as starting point. The use case brings us 3 elements in our interaction. The first is the collaboration itself. The collaboration is a representation for the use case, buying online tickets by smartphone, and we get 2 participants represents the actor and the system or the outlying component or system. And we are just starting by create the interaction between the participants. So let us bring a little more space here and start with the interaction by model and sequence flow or message flow from customer to service. The first one is build up and request, and as the answer from the request we receive some connections, and after this we place an order and receive the ticket, I think. The first part of an interaction to build up part of the example, starting with request, get connections back, order, and tickets. Well, that's the first part of the BPMN collaboration diagram. Build up the connections between the participants. And after this, we go a little bit deeper inside the participants and look what has happened during the process, during the interaction inside the participants. And for this, typically we use a normal BPMN process diagram. Typically this, it's just in a like cooking action. I prepare this, it's easier. I prepare a small happy parse scenario for the creation of the process, or of a typical enter the connection request, search a connection, select one, get receive some details and check the details, it's okay for me, or try another connection, buy the ticket and save the ticket on my smartphone. That's a typical process we use inside one of the participants. Yeah? On the other side, the DB service, DB online ticket service is also provide some features. For this part, I create a new one. I create a new process inside this. New process for produce ticket. And produce ticket means receive a message or receive order. No, that comes from here. And send it back. Okay, that's short part. Only if you see how easy it is to produce someone. For the customer, we try to reuse our process, which shown here. So I'm just drop the process into the participants and show that's our part, and what's the receiving part. Well, it's a part of here, produce a ticket. The order comes from this one, and the ticket goes to this task. And we need more for this part of request and connection. And during the modeling process, we receive more actions here, or we produce more actions here for checking connection details. So typically we create a new process here by get details and send it back to the details process. So that's typical part of the, I think you can imagine how it works for this one, though I keep it in this way, to build up the complete interaction with both with the detailed view invite the participants and including the overview interaction view, which include both participants and the complete collaboration. Question, is this process executable? What do you mean? Is this process executable? Yeah? Because what? Why?
You have all the information you need, but I think the BPMN diagram is not correct.
Because?
Yeah, it's not allowed to have two independent sequences in a pool.
Okay. It's okay. Let me add. I put this one some new lanes and surrounding sub-process, okay? And I just can add some attributes to the sub-process to be interruptible or be an event-driven sub-process. So that's a fine BPMN process.
The interesting thing here would be what we have discussed yesterday. If the customer has the idea that he say, okay, I don't want travel anymore. And in any situation, he or she can stop the travel arrangements.
Correct. If this is part you typically model or put into the model, you can abort or you cancel each task. It's typical in an application.
Yeah, but we discussed that with Ilya Mashkov, and up to now, we did it with the order process, stop order. And up to now, we couldn't find a very transparent and clear solution in BPMN.
Correct.
Maybe you have it. I failed. He found a certain solution, but he said not very transparent and not clear. It's more programming than modeling. And
correct.
Because the problem is, if you interrupt your execution, you do not know how far your pool is, and therefore you send a message, but you have only, and up to now it's not clear whether you have synchronous message exchange or asynchronous message exchange between pools. It's not mentioned in the standard.
Correct.
Therefore you do not have a clear semantic, and therefore it's clear if you assume that the message exchange is synchronous, then the model is executable. But if you do not know what message exchange means, then it's not executable.
Correct. Typically you use compensation handler, or you send compensation intermediate events and add some compensation actions, but it's keep the process unreadable, or lead to an absolutely unreadable process. So typically in this kind of stage we only create models with the happy path or with major exceptions, but not with the typical exceptions like you are able to cancel all. No, it's normal, or with not normal exception. We discussed yesterday the term of exception, so I don't want to follow this discussion again. So we insert some business value or a business or according to business exceptions according to a business decision from the customer. So I think typically that's the happy path. Normally after checking the connection, typically you are able to insert a gateway. Just let me check to set the definition here. You are typically insert a decision and gateway, and you should go back to search conditions, or to leave the application or close the application again. Though typically gateways are typically inserted for the business aspects, but not for typically technical cancel or abort of an application.
I'm talking about changing the order or changing my travel arrangements. I do not want the train anymore, I go by plane.
Correct. That's not part of the model just now, correct. Though I'm not really sure that this model is able to execute because you have no information about technical services and so on. Though typically we include some service information by getting to the web page of Deutsche Bahn and receive the WSDL statements for our services. And typically we receive the WSDL files and go deeper. Go to this examples, the railway online services. You receive the includes the WSDL file into the model, receive some service definitions, and go more a little bit deeper into the modeling aspects by adding some information about the services. By search connections mean using the find connection service, or get connections mean calling this service. It's like this one, and I prepare the produce ticket by this one. Perhaps that's part of identify the type of the task in our process. And if you're not able to attribute or to type the task, I think it's not able to execute it because the execution engine is not able to decide if the human interaction task is a service task or whatever is to do during execute the task. The only way to execute this process is to put it into an inbox of an account, an email account, and say anyone, hey, please use it. So typically we start here by change the model and enter the type of a task, assign service definition, or change some elements to an user interaction element. So by changing the element type to a user input task. And finally, the user input task normally use a mask definition or a mask, though I prepare some masks here for the application. So I drop the mask definition here, and you see the input fields on the mask, the logical input fields of the mask. You see some event definition which can be used during the mask. If you want to see the mask, it's also possible to just double click on the right side. Okay, let's double click in the tree. You can see the mask direct here in short mask editor or a screen flow editor. You see the mask using a normal screen capture from the application or from a previous application. You find or you define the input fields which showing on the mask, and you define some actions or event elements which helps you to follow the screen flow to another screen to another mask, which typically, like an user story in an HR process, then you can press on the button and follow to the next mask, which model in the process as well. Well, that typical feature in the mask editor. So we decide which type of actions we have, user interactions or service interactions on this one. We define the services, and I think we also have to do is to produce some information flow or to add some information objects to our process to keep the knowledge about our process instance or to store the information by creating some data objects, and the data objects receive some types, or I select a type for the data object, and type could be, let's go back to the page here, the prepared. I just prepare a small business object overview diagram with some business objects and the relations between them. And for this new generated data object here, I create a business object as a view of this one, because classes or UML did not provide the view concept like an entity relationship or so on. So we create a data structure element or a data definition item which build up a view of our business objects, which collect all necessary attributes together from different kind of business objects. And this is part of the model, this data definition structure or the data structure should be used as the input, as the data object. So I just throw it on the, this is our connection request. I'm just throw it on the data object and use it as an input or output for the different processes. And adding this information together and collect all informations about the structures, the behavior, the information structure, the organizational structure. So typically we add some resources together by roles, IT units and so on to add to the model, so we can assign some, or to add some lanes and assign some organizational aspect like role or so on to the lane itself. So it's not used to represent. Let me keep more place. For a smaller display resolution, it's hard to show together. Okay. So this information together, I keep this information together for behavior, for structural organizational information, data transfer, use of web services or any other kind of service definition. And this process or this information keep together to produce an BPMN process definition. And this BPMN process definition are exported with or without graphical information, and this is stored. Okay. Check this. Not yet. Not just done. Some problem inside? Oh, I think I have a problem in the process, so it's not able to create. Okay, the event definition is not set. Okay. Typically, I add an event definition behind the intermediate event to show to add into the BPMN process. So I have to add a kind of event definition like an error message or a compensation or a time or any other kind of this one. So typically that could be a problem. So let's check again the last few seconds. It's not yet. Not running. Okay, that's problem at the end of the story. Typically the BPMN file is created and sent to an execution engine built up by Oracle, TIBCO, or another kind of partner from us, and bring up to execution. Yeah. So that's briefly introduction into some modeling aspects like BPMN, like UML, like class diagrams, like mask definitions, and so on. And all this together bring together to a complete mostly executable model and send it back to the execution engine. Okay, that's.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. Are there any questions?
How easy or how difficult is it to that TIBCO or IBM understand your models? Because my personal experience is not very positive in that direction.
I agree with you. It's not very possible to start the interaction between this kind of firms. Though at the first time it's very difficult. It's not running. Yeah? We create a first BPMN diagram or process, and both engines are not able to import it. So we start a very close interaction with TIBCO, with Oracle, to build up a special exporter for this kind of engines, though each engine needs a special BPMN export file. That's a part of ours, work together with the other firms to build up a close connection, not part of the customer itself.
Because I can imagine that Max Dirndorf will tell a story about that.
Correct, absolutely. It's absolutely a horror. It's a nightmare to provide a perfect matched export file for each kind of engine.
And then the next question is, for example, if you survive the import from a syntax point of view, then the next issue is, do both sides have the same understanding of the semantics, especially the pools? Because this is not very well defined in the standard.
Correct.
I would say not at all.
Normally we export a process to an execution engine, and a process is inside a pool. So we don't export two pools, there are only one. So it's keep it a little bit easier for us because we reduce the amount of elements during the export process.
Yeah, because this was also my experience. I produced a very simple model with two pools in Bonitasoft. I exported it, and then I imported it again in Bonitasoft. Then one pool disappeared.
Correct.
That's the question. Yeah. My question goes in a similar direction. Yes? So it's regarding the question whether this model is executable or not. Why did you ask us this question? Does your tool or doesn't your tool have a check whether this model is executable or not?
Sure, we provide some checks, some model verifications, which it helps you to find out some errors, some configuration or some syntax or some part of semantic errors. Yeah. So typically, my question is if you have an idea that is or is not executable. innovator keeps in mind and helps us to find some errors, some syntactical or some, like this message during the export process. I'm not able to export the BPMN because some error is still occur.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to stop others.
Another one?
No, I would like to ask you another one. This connection item, I have understood that this is a view of a business object you have defined earlier, I guess.
Correct.
So it is used in the process, as I understood it, like a process data household.
Correct. Yes, it's okay.
So and process data households are either stored in the RAM of the server or the client, or in some cases it has to be persistent. If, for example, the process stops in between. Is there another BPMN expert? Is there a possibility to tell the runtime engine if the data household has to be stored for later processing?
It depends on the used engine. Some engine is able to accept some information from us by adding some properties to this kind of, we add some property values to use this as an persistent data object or a transient data object. Yeah? We add some tag value pairs to the elements, put it into the BPMN file, and typically TIBCO and Soft Project is able to understand this value and use it in the engine itself.
Okay, for example, if you create a business model, you export it, and let's assume you import it very successful, for example, into TIBCO, IBM or whatever. And then you realize that you have forgotten something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you make the changes in your model, or is the other changes made in the IBM or TIBCO or who else model?
We have a clear preparation, or we prefer
from a business point of view. Sure.
Correct. We absolutely prefer the forward engineering path. So we provide some information or some re-engineering or some re-import facility, because we add an UUID to each element we export, and if the engine is able to store our UUID, we are able to identify during the import of the information, we identify the element and we are able to re-import the information.
This means the changes are made in the IBM, or let's assume IBM, some changes
are
IBM
possible.
And then you re-import it into
correct.
Innovator.
Yes, correct.
This means you have the same problem again, only in the other direction.
Correct. It's the same problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here, as far as I know, each BPMN vendor, as far as I know, there is no BPMN vendor which supports all the 160 symbols you can use, if you count them. This means each vendor has his or her preferred symbols. Some of them have 12, others have 25, and then there are some they have 60, but there are nearly no symbols, maybe except action, which is supported by each vendor. This means you have some differences between this. And then you can also run into problems with your round-trip approach, because then programming or adapting doesn't help anymore.
Correct.
You have a basic problem.
That's make our work so hard. To build up the connections. So we start by profiling the modeling capabilities. So we reduce the amount of symbols in special kind of scenarios. So if we know we want to export to TIBCO or to IBM and so, we reduce the amount of symbols which is able to export. So we build up a profile. The profile mechanism is well known from UML. So we use this profiling mechanisms to reduce the symbols and build up a modeling style or a modeling guideline for this typical kind of scenario. And this helps us to match or to help us to realize the round trip. But keep in mind, I'm not in favor for the round trip. I'm in favor for forward engineering practice. And if you find up a structural problem, changes in the model and export it again and keep the re-import mechanism in both tools to help us.
The problem is, this is also what we would prefer in programming. You know, you write the requirement spec and then you do some programming and you add the new feature in the program, but you never update the documentation. This is the problem we have now for 50 years or so.
Yes, correct.
We are fighting again. We are still fighting against them. But I have another question. I here at universities, they always say, okay, let's build a model for the happy path because this covers 80% of the problems, and that's okay. I think the Schwäbisch Hall
needs 100% of.
They will be bankrupt in 2 days if they handle their Bausparverträge only 80% in a correct way, and the other 20% by people who are fighting like heroes. But they will be bankrupt. This means 99% is not enough for them. Maybe that they even have problems with 90.9%. This is
correct.
This is not good enough for them. And here we are not talking about problems with human life. That's only a Bausparvertrag. And you know, this means the same, for example, with Amazon. And therefore, I disagree with the approach is, okay, build your process and you cover 80%. This was a good statement in the 90s maybe, but not in 2013. Because I think they kill you if you only handle 99% of your Bausparverträge in a correct way. You need, I assume you need 99.99.
Yes.
That's just good enough.
We are actually discussing about Six Sigma approaches.
Yeah, then it's okay then.
but it's the truth, yes.
Yeah.
So our goal especially in the Bausparantrags phase is to reach 100% automatic execution without any human interaction.
As an engineer, I do not believe in 100%.
Yeah. But it's a goal.
Yeah, it's a goal, and I think we should measure all our modeling approaches on such goals. We are not talking about airplanes, because 99.99% security would mean every week one air crash in Munich. Nobody would go into an airplane anymore, and I think. Therefore, I'm so critical to BPMN, because BPMN does not, in my opinion, okay, it's my subjective opinion, does not allow to cover that problems. I'm sure that you can describe any problem in the world with BPMN, that's clear, because it's Turing complete, I assume. Here I'm sure, but the question is not, is it possible in a principal way? That's not the question. I think we have an engineering question. And the engineering question is, can I do it in a transparent and in a clear and understandable way? And here I have some problems with BPMN to say, I thought maybe that, I'm here because I thought maybe that I know your company a long time. That you have find a solution, maybe, but okay.
My opinion is that's the problem of all our modeling notations. It's not a special problem of BPMN, it's the same problem with UML, and I think for all other notations that it is a problem to model 100% of all cases. So I believe, or I dream for an adaptive case management or this kind of acronym, or to build up a very adaptable model which helps the user to find out 100% of all cases, not only the happy path or any other kind of decision. So we develop the way, or in next years we develop in the direction of ACM, adaptive case management, or this kind of element, because I think it's easier to build a model which keep more than 80% of the passes to go in the direction of 100%.
In my opinion, 80% is not allowed anymore. Even 99% is the lowest limit.
Okay.
This is my opinion. Because Amazon, they only sell books. Not even Bausparverträge. That's more disastrous for the guy who wants to build his or her house. Amazon, they only sell books. But 99.99 is just good enough for Amazon, because otherwise they will lose money, and they will lose a lot of money.
I agree absolutely with you.
Very interesting point. Are there any other questions or inputs? If not so, I wish you a very pleasant lunch and thank you for your attention.
Thanks.